The last bastions of democracy wear black robes. And in our breaking story today from CNN, well, there may be some splinters on that Supreme Court bench that would get right under Donald Trump's mottled hide. From today forward, the 8 members of the Supreme Court will preside over the collapse or the comeback of our democracy under the emerging threat from within.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not.
You could suppose that when Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett, he probably thought, hey, she's my redheaded ringer. Well, she advanced through a compliant Congress and secured a lifetime seat on Team Trump's bench. But in today's red-hot story, conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett, well, she may be the ginger that ails Donald. Mea culpa. I can't resist. The amazing exchange that you're about to hear between Elena Kagan Barrett and Trump's Solicitor General John, I'll be singing with Bobby at the next Kennedy Center Barbershop Quartet performance, Sour. That's incredibly revealing. Check it out. This guy's got glottal fry. He needs ketchup. Before our great featured story today, let's keep in mind that Amy Coney Barrett has become a bit of a conundrum. On the one hand, before she was named Supreme Court Justice, she held the title in the People of Praise Charismatic Christian Church of Handmaid. No kidding.
In 1987, Margaret Atwood told the New York Times that she got the idea for her novel The Handmaid's Tale from a Catholic charismatic spin-off sect which calls the women handmaids. This group is called People of Hope. Barrett's church is called People of Praise, so it wasn't the direct inspiration for the book, though it has also used the term handmaids. And the People of Praise members take a lifelong oath, and they're assigned advisors who guide them in making life decisions like who to date or marry, where to live, where to work, and how to raise kids. These male advisors were called heads, and female advisors were called handmaids, and this religion teaches that husbands are the head of the household.
And yet in today's top story, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett seems to be splintering the bench and siding with liberal Justice Elena Kagan, who is definitely not a handmaid. Now, we have a brilliant breakdown of this potential judicial tide turning that offers a glimmer of hope as Trump seeks to enforce absolute authority through executive orders and nationwide injunctions. Well, last night, it was a growing hot topic of conversation on CNN, and today it's our breaking story from this morning. On the other side of this clip from Caitlin Collins last night, our fascinating panel discussion from this morning with Audie Cornish on CNN.
But the real ball game here is those nationwide injunctions. It's clear the 3 liberal justices are going to be against Trump on them. It's clear Alito and Thomas are going to be for him. So the ball game is, can you, if you're on the liberal side, get 2 out of Gorsuch, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh? And I think Kavanaugh sees a real problem with the practicalities here. And I think Amy Coney Barrett also voiced some real questions that I think would be of concern to the Trump administration.
And it's conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett jumping in to cover liberal Justice Elena Kagan's back in this heated exchange with Trump's Solicitor General John Sauer. Well, that may well draw a line between the rule of law and fealty to the executive branch. By the way, Thomas Jefferson just threw up in his mouth. Now, let's all see how this clash at the Supreme Court played out this morning with Audie Cornish and her group chat on CNN.
Group chat is back to discuss. I'm just going to open it wide. Like, was there any? No, I mean, because there's 2 issues, right? There's the birthright citizenship issue, with lots of people are just like, this is a non-starter. Why are they pushing this, et cetera? And then there's this issue of what is the process for challenging any given administration? What did you guys hear that struck you?
Well, there's a conservative majority on the court, so there's always the possibility that those justices could decide that those who enter the country illegally are not automatically entitled to becoming U.S. citizens by their birth here. But the bigger issue, as you alluded to, Audie, is this question of nationwide injunctions. It wasn't long ago, just a few months ago, in fact, that the Biden DOJ under Merrick Garland went to the Supreme Court and said that they wanted to put an end to these nationwide injunctions. It has frustrated presidents both on the Republican and Democrat side.
But what I hear the justices actually arguing, the justices were saying, okay, well then what's the alternative? Is it a class action suit? Is it what's the system here?
I think what's the two biggest takeaways I've seen so far is one, how the rule of law will prevail. And I think that's a big question. But two, I think justices are looking for a pathway to rule on the 14th Amendment. This conversation around this particular issue is not new to the High Court. I think every president perhaps has had some sort of battle with this. But from a political standpoint, this is right where Donald Trump wants to be, arguing a very key centerpiece for his political platforms every single time he's ran for president. And so at some point, he's going to turn to make this a political issue and put pressure on this Supreme Court that's his majority.
Speaking of pressure, people are paying attention to Amy Coney Barrett, right? Because she's someone that they've determined maybe isn't as reliable as they had hoped. I don't think that's the case yet. But here's a moment between Justice Barrett and Elena Kagan and the Solicitor General, of course, arguing for the government. And here's the line of questioning.
There are all kinds of abuses of nationwide injunctions. But I think that the question that this case presents is that if one thinks that it's quite clear that the EO is illegal, how does one get to that result, in what time frame, on your set of rules, without the possibility of a nationwide injunction?
On this case and on many similar cases, the appropriate way to do it is for there to be multiple lower courts considering it. Ultimately, this court decides the merits in a nationwide binding precedent. You have a complete inversion of that through the nationwide injunctions where the district.
So, General Sauer, are you really going to answer Justice Kagan by saying there's no way to do this expeditiously? If there were a class appropriate for class certification, you concede that that could resolve the question quickly?
Yes, absolutely.
You concede.
I'm going to translate a little. There's been this conversation about whether there can be kind of class action lawsuits, and that's the way people can get relief rather than going to a judge in any particular state. But it's the tone, right? Let's pretend we don't know the words, but the tone of her jumping in and saying, are you really going to do that?
Who knows? It may end up being boys on one side, girls on the other. If Barrett sides with Kagan and Sotomayor and Jackson, now where does that leave Brett Kavanaugh? How does he fit in if he sides with the women's team? Well, that remains to be seen. But in the meantime, I might remind Justice Kavanaugh, there's no crying in American jurisprudence.
We mean no ill will.